Well, one of the main things that I found kind of nice is the opening chapter talks about getting the right money mindset. So it focuses, if you don't know what you want and what you're looking for and what you believe you can have and deserve and get, then there's no financial goal that you can set that's going to make any sense. So what we want to do is help people to understand the mindset of money and help them to figure out where they are so that they can figure out where they actually want to be. And then they can start applying, setting financial goals. Then they can create a budget. Then they can start figuring out, how am I going to get where it is that I want to go? So I think one of the biggest feedback that we've had from some of the actual written reviews that are posted is that it deals with the mindset first, and they appreciate that.
Hi, everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have another great author on the podcast, an award-winning author, even better, right? And Tanya's on the podcast. We're going to be talking about her book. So many good stuff to talk about. If you need help learning about money, and you didn't learn about it in school, Tanya has the perfect book for you, Basic Financial Literacy, What You Didn't Learn in School. And I have a list of things I didn't learn in school. And here's a book to help you. Tanya, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, David. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Excellent. Your smile makes me happy, and that's great. Where are you in this big world of ours?
I am in Charlottesville, Virginia, USA.
Beautiful. Mm. So give me one sightseeing thing to see in your part of the world, a must-see.
Monticello. Mm. It is the home of Thomas Jefferson, our third president. And beautiful. It's a lovely property with beautiful views and lovely gardens. So it is really a must-see.
There you go. I love it. I love history. So you got me there. Mm-hmm. I'm all curious, and I want to go see and be a part of that. And then maybe you and I can have coffee or something together when I come down. All right. Okay. Well, we'll put that into the calendar. I love it. So you have a new book that's out. You have many books, but you have a new book out, an award-winning book, which is in your hands right there. I have it on my screen here as I'm talking to you. Again, Basic Financial Literacy, What You Didn't Learn in School. Mm-hmm. Why does this book exist? Tanya, fill us in. Why is this here?
This book exists because the illiteracy rate in the U.S. is 50%. So that means there are so many of us who did not have that dinner conversation at home where mom and dad talked to us about money and finance and how you actually acquire your resources and how do you write a daggum check and what does money actually look like anyway that it's not on your phone. And so because of that, we wanted to help people to gain access to the understanding of financials and the impact that it has on your life and the way you operate your life, but also give you a chance to create some wealth. Because if you don't know the opportunities that exist and the avenues that are there, then you're not going to be able to tap into it. And if you can't tap into it, then you won't have the leg up that others will.
Mm. So who is this book for?
It is, quite frankly, for anyone from late teens and up. As Gen Z has the lowest literacy rate of all. And those are those who have been born after 1998 or so. So they need the greatest help because passing down, these parents didn't talk to their kids. These kids didn't talk to their kids. And so, so they had the least opportunity of all to be successful financially. But the reality is people even old like me in my generation didn't have that conversation around the table either. So there are people in gaps and different ages, so in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, that miss some of the opportunity that others have had. So this book helps them as well.
So why is financial literacy not being taught in schools to the level it should be?
It is amazing because it's not something that we can just sit down and force you to remember this and then regurgitate it on a standardized test. We don't teach our children how to function most effectively in our own society. And there are less than 25% of states that have school programs on personal finance or financial literacy, and a great majority of them only teach a little segment, maybe 2 weeks within a larger course that talks about, oh, by the way, this is money and this is what it does. So as we were saying, so that's why we need it.
One of my guests that came on one of my other shows, my How to Podcast series, he has a show, and I think he's in grade 6, and he has a podcast called Cash Kid, and he's like 11, and he's a podcaster, and he talks to kids about how to deal with money. He trades on the stock exchange with his parents. He talks bonds and things around the dinner table. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like when they have free time in class, he's on his computer checking how his stocks are doing. Where everyone else is playing like Pokemon or whatever. He's on a different level. And I'm like, that's a good sign of kids understanding money. When you look around in your community and your circle, do you see a desire to learn about money, or is it something that people just haven't really put a lot of effort into learning?
I don't think it's that they wouldn't have a desire if they were not given the opportunity. So if you say, well, Mom, Dad, why can't I get a skateboard or whatever? And they just say, not right now, Billy. Or whatever. They don't talk about the money and the finances behind all of that. They don't say, well, I'll tell you what, that skateboard costs $60. Your allowance is X amount. Perhaps over time you'd be able to save enough to blah, blah, blah. I don't know why we don't educate our children enough. Why we're afraid to talk about money at the table. Why we're afraid to say, you know what, Mom and Dad don't have a retirement fund. And so if something happens to us, there's not going to be something there for you and your siblings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
And now with people aging as they do, we are living longer, but not healthier. And we have parents that we have to take care of, but we haven't had the conversation that says, hey, Mom, Dad, what kind of long-term care insurance do you have? What kind of, assets do you have that we'll be able to tap into if we need to take care of you? We don't have those conversations.
When my father passed away many, many years ago, we assumed basically their debts because there was no income from my mother. And we basically almost buried ourselves in debts because we didn't want her to have to do something drastic financially for her own self by herself. So we just kind of stepped in and did that, and we took a hit. And from there, we've grown to the point now where just a couple days ago, we just bought our second rental property. So we're on a different track, and we want to, we when our children were little, we said we have 3 kids. We wanted to have a property for each of them to give to them that would be paid for by the time they get it, where they could either be a landlord or live there. And it would be their own piece to get them started in the right direction. So we've been struggling and working our way through that. And now we have our second and possibly our third coming up, that rental property that we'll have. And we're on that track to meet that goal we set when our children were small. And I'm surprised at how much we didn't know about finances and your credit rating and all of that. And I think the one thing I think when I think of my kids is they don't understand how bad debt can really cripple your future. They don't understand the ramifications of, ordering something through your credit card to have it home delivered, and that you're paying interest on that hamburger or pizza. You got to understand how bad debt hurts you. If we could have a classroom of students and get up and talk to them about bad debts, what are some of the things that you would avoid or want us to avoid compared to good debts?
Absolutely. So when you think about that, anything that doesn't grow in value, you are wasting your money on. So when you are acquiring frivolous assets that are just things around your house, for example, but you're using credit to do it, and then you don't pay that credit off immediately, now you're paying interest on a book or something. Whereas if you acquire an asset such as that does have value, like a house, there are ways that you can leverage that house to your advantage. There's ways that you can use good debt to acquire other assets, reduce your cost, especially from a business perspective. There are some, I remember back in when I was doing my, I don't know if it was my MBA or my undergrad, where the case study was a business who did not want to go below, I don't know, they probably had the 3 figures at the end. We'll keep it simple. They didn't want to go below $10,000 a month in their business checking account so that they could always be ready to manage their working capital. Well, what they would do then, you had to decide, all right, I will take on debt when I get to that $10,000 mark. I'm going to get a line of credit so that I can use that to leverage, and then I pay that off for the next time and the next time and so forth. So you learn then that, so debt's just not a matter of I don't have the money, so I go and borrow to get something. I can actually borrow when I do have the money to leverage what I already have. And so a lot of people don't get that understanding at all when they're learning about credit. They're just getting shoved credit cards when, kids get when they graduate, right? They're getting all the 50,000 credit cards that you can have right now. And, oh, wow.
Yeah.
$50,000. And,
yeah.
They don't realize what they have to pay all that back.
Yeah. I was showing one of my kids on the statement, their credit card statement, it says in the corner somewhere that if you continue to pay the minimum per month, you will pay off this debt in 60 years or something crazy, this big number. And I'm like, so your grandchildren will be paying your credit card if you continue doing this. You understand? And they're just like, wow. Like, I don't understand how debt goes on top of debt and, it gets worse and worse. And just compiles, right?
And it does. It really does. And there have been times in my life where it's just been like, stifling and having to climb back out of that. But when you realize the impact that it has, one of the things that my daughter had to learn recently was going on her own, getting out of college, having to get her first apartment, to take her first job. You can't even get apartments sometimes without having a credit report that shows you're worthy of it, right? You don't get the credit report if you've always lived on cash and haven't used credit before then. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that I believe a lot of our high school students could benefit from, the knowledge of how to manage credit, why it's important, why do we care, but then also how do we avoid making it a problem.
This sounds like more than just a book. It sounds like a conversation that needs to happen in our homes.
It absolutely does. And we've got a chapter 6, that addresses the credit issue and how to leverage that from both a personal and a business perspective, because we expect several of the readers of this book to be adults who are running businesses, they're entrepreneurs and so forth. There is a business perspective in here as well. So the credits chapter addresses both personal and business credit.
Good. Now have your Amazon listing for the book up as we're chatting. And there's a list, an extensive list of what we're going to see in the book. You talk a little bit about the power of regular savings. Mm-hmm. How, when a lot of us kind of live paycheck to paycheck, and the idea of having a savings account or having savings seems like a dream. Mm-hmm. And, is it really that important to be saving money and putting some money aside? Why should we do that when we just want everything we want it now, right?
We're in this instant society. Why do I need anything for later? Well, the reality is you will likely need something for later. You never know what that is. Now, I've never been a real fan of having an emergency fund, which implies that something horrible is going to happen, because I'm such an optimistic kind of person, right? I'd rather be a sunny day fund or something like that. Something that, wow, if I have this pot of money sitting here, it's going to help me. I can do something with it later. In any event, it doesn't take much, even if you don't have much, to just set aside a percentage of what you have into a savings account that hopefully could earn a little bit of interest. Now, granted, when you're first starting out, let's say you're a high schooler and, you're just making that summer job money, right? And you want to put let's say that well, your situation totally depends. Let's say you have enough to put away 10% of every dollar into a savings account. That's awesome.
Yep.
So every time you do it, though, if it earns a smidgen of interest, right now it is a smidgen in our savings accounts, unfortunately. But when you see that, you start to see it grow. I didn't even add anything new. And now the cost of money has helped it to increase and grow. Well, when you get to a point where you have a big enough deposit to actually put into a high yield savings account, for example, something that you don't see very often, you don't pull from, you just put that money in there, it has a chance to maybe earn 5% instead of, 0.1. And when you start seeing that compounding and you start seeing that growing, it's like, wow, all I'm doing is putting in 10% of my paycheck here, but this is growing. And that can actually be incentive. It can be very exciting to see that. Oh, I want to see how big I can make this pot grow. It's a fun way to have money.
What other big tips are we going to find in this book that are going to help us as a young person to, prepare for college, being away from home for the first time? There's a lot of new expenses we've never had because we've always lived at home with mom and dad. Everything was basically free. The fridge always had food. Now we're on our own and we have to do it all. Is there other stuff in here that's going to help us to live a good life? There
is. Early on in the book, in chapter 3, we talk about budgeting and expense management. That might be a good place for young people to understand that it's going to cost you a certain amount of money every month to live. You're going to need to pay for your apartment or wherever you're living. You're going to need to pay for your car. And oh my, you wanted a car so bad, but a car actually costs gas money. It costs insurance. You actually have to pay for that thing, right?
Yeah.
So there's more than just, I want this. Sometimes it costs money to maintain this, whatever that is, right? So if you create a budget, then you can understand, okay, I'm going to be making, $2,000 from this job, but it costs me $1,200 for my rent. It's going to cost me $200 for food. It's going to cost me, etc. If you can figure those things out, then you'll be able to understand where your money's going, first of all, decide where you want it to go, and then set aside a percentage of it for whatever your longer term goal is. Let's say that you want to save up for a great sofa for your apartment. Well, if you don't know what you have and you're just spending money willy-nilly, then you won't know how long it's going to take you to save what you need to get that sofa. And you certainly don't want to just go and buy that on a credit card.
Right.
I suggest you don't. And so if you have a budget, you can say, okay, I'm getting in this. I have to spend that on these things. There's no way I can avoid that. But I have this discretionary money. I could choose to go out to eat, or maybe I could put that in the savings account and save that for my sofa. So it just gives you a choice. Whereas a lot of people think, if I have a budget, I'm strapped, I'm tied down, I can't do anything. But actually, a budget gives you a choice. I choose how I'm going to spend my money. I choose where that money is going to go. So a budget is freedom, not restriction.
I like it. How has the response been from the book so far? Yeah, you award-winning author. Congratulations! But from the readers as well, what are you hearing back? Any comments?
Well, one of the main things that I found kind of nice is the opening chapter talks about getting the right money mindset. So it focuses, if you don't know what you want and what you're looking for and what you believe you can have and deserve and get, then there is no financial goal that you can set that's going to make any sense. So what we wanted to do is help people to understand the mindset of money and help them to figure out where they are so that they can figure out where they actually want to be. And then they can start applying setting financial goals. Then they can create a budget. Then they can start figuring out, how am I going to get where it is that I want to go? So I think one of the biggest feedback that we've had from some of the actual written reviews that are posted is that it deals with the mindset first, and they appreciated that.
Yeah. And I see another author named on the book as well, Michael Garrison. Can you tell me about Michael?
Yeah, Michael is my co-author, and he is He is a successful real estate investor. But Michael and I, what's so interesting is we were talking that we didn't get this education when we were coming up. So we are who the book is written for as well, because we didn't have somebody sit us down. Okay, now, Michael, I want you to know that you can invest in real estate at this month and do that. We didn't get that.
Yeah.
So both of us recognized that there's a lack, there's a gap in knowledge out there, and we want to help people to gain a little more wealth. And thankfully, Michael has been successful in real estate, and he continues to help actually his clients in his real estate business to be more successful and afford housing and grow as owners of property as well. So he's a wonderful individual. It's so great to be able to do this with him.
What is your connection with him personally then?
Well, we actually are in a business organization together, but we also work on a magazine together.
Okay.
He is the executive editor of the Bellwether magazine, and I am the managing editor of the Bellwether magazine. And it's through that and the work. It's a entrepreneurial finance and lifestyle magazine that is designed to provide great value and no ads. So we provide great content for entrepreneurs, for individuals. We have a section in there, quite frankly, called Money with Morals. And its focus is revenue generation, wealth creation, and philanthropy. And money is not just for the rich and the greedy. Money is for all of us. Money is energy. Money is for sharing. Money is for growing things. Money is for making dreams come true. Money is for living a vision. Mm-hmm. So we're excited to be able to try to help people to create that money.
So how do we get a hold of that magazine?
That's a good question. I do have a link for the Bellwether magazine, but I don't have a simple one that I can throw off at you.
Okay, we'll put it in the notes though, so people can go and go check out the magazine.
I will have it in the notes. We have another issue coming out in July, as a matter of fact. So it comes out every 2 months, so you can find us there. But on LinkedIn, you can probably find it the easiest, because you can just type in the Bellwether magazine. The magazine has a page, and you can follow that page.
Okay, beautiful. We'll have links for everybody that are busy on the treadmill right now listening to us or walking the dog and going, I can't wait to read that magazine. I can't wait to subscribe.
Wonderful.
That's great.
It's a wonderful magazine. It really is.
Amazing. So my podcast is called Living the Next Chapter. So I have to ask, for you as an author, a very busy person, a very creative person, how are you living your next chapter? The book's out there. People love it. What's your next chapter? What are you doing?
There are so many next in my life right now. Well, one next is that we're going to have a workbook that's going to go with the basic financial literacy book. We want people, this kind of helps, it's kind of like an umbrella. It gives you an overview of things to bear in mind and so forth and how you can grow. But we want to have the workbook to help people to actually apply it, because knowledge is not powerful unless you apply it. And so we want to give them that power. So that's one of the next that's coming up. I also have other books that I'm going to be writing that are actually on different topics. To be honest, one is on dementia. And it is Finding Grace When You Want to Scream. Simple Tips to Cope for Dementia Caregivers. That's the title of that book. And it has been in the works for a while, but it keeps getting put back on the back burner. So I'm going to get that out eventually. I am. And the other thing that's keeping me busy as my next is, it's actually my ongoing and not really my next, is the bestseller worthy formula. It is a 9-week course that is online, but we have weekly live office hour sessions. So we spend an hour with students every week going through their material, helping them to address any questions, working them through the process. And what they're learning is how to write, publish, and launch to bestseller their own book. And 100% guaranteed, because 100% of students who have gone through the course and launched their book according to the formula have reached bestseller status.
Wow.
So It is a guaranteed formula. I teach that with my colleague, Kathy Kay. And it's just been so much fun to be in office hours with our students, and they're cheering each other on and they're supporting each other through the process. And it is just so exciting and so much fun.
So how have you changed now that you're an author, a published author? When you look back at the beginning days of writing, you must be a different person today than you were back at the beginning. How have you changed? How have you grown in the process of being an author?
I have always played with words. I've always worked with words in some way or another. Even when I was running small business development centers in 2 states, even when I was working with Ernst & Young, I was dealing with words. And so I've always been an editor of some sort, always worked with words as in that role. And when I started my first editorial services company, Halogen Inc., I was dealing with words at all times. That came after my first book, which, let's see, where am I? My first book is The Loan Solution over here. And The Loan Solution was designed. Now here, you want to talk about change. The Loan Solution was written for small businesses who wanted to leverage their resources with those of others. So my first and my last book deal with finances so far. That book was when I was a business consultant, people were coming to me, oh, you're going to start a business? You got to talk to Tanya. You want to get a loan? You got to talk to Tanya. So it was like, business, Tanya. So I had so many people coming to me for loans for their small businesses that I had to write that book so that I could tell them, all right, get to step 5, and then you can have an appointment with me. Not until then.
Oh, okay.
I had to write the book to slow down people from coming in my door. So, but it was so that everybody came in on the same page. They were all informed. They understood the total cost of money. They knew what budgeting was like. They knew what a cash flow statement was. They knew their income statement. So all of that was in the book so that they would know what they were getting into from a financial perspective, getting a loan for business. So I have grown through helping others with their books, but I have had such fabulous experiences in the process. I have worked with authors some who have 70 books on the shelf, and then others who are writing their first, right? And I have worked with some who are, younger authors, and then others who, I think my eldest author was 90 when he was writing his first book.
90?
90.
Come on.
It was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful experience, I have to tell you. Oh, man, I absolutely loved it. He didn't know he was about to become an author either. So his son knew that his dad had collected a bunch of cassette tapes that talk stories about his life. So he had his dad send him those cassette tapes, got them transcribed, and then said, all right, Tanya, I have all of this. My dad's birthday is in June, and I know we only have a few months, but I need to turn this into a book, and then I need it printed and shipped to my dad for his birthday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was quite the laborious process for me at that particular time. I had to get through all of those stories, come up with a way to organize them in a book that would make sense, condense them or combine them for their best essence. Because when you're 90 and you're going to record today and you record the next day, you might repeat the same story, right? We had a lot of that. So I took the best essence out of all of the versions of the stories and put them all together. And I tell you, by the time I finished with that book, I felt like, he was my grandpa. And, I'd been sitting in the living room with him this whole time.
Wow.
Well, we got that book. His son took it up there, unveiled it for him on his birthday. And there was a YouTube video of it. It is just so moving. I just absolutely loved it. And he was able to read it to his ailing wife. And, hey, I'm an author. He liked it so much that he did another book. So I did another book the next year with him. That one was a little easier, but
Wow.
it was the autobiography. That was his autobiography that we wrote for him. At 90, he became an author. So it was really
That's amazing.
Wonderful experience.
The amount of things he would have seen and lived through and experienced in those years.
Yeah. But, you know,
right.
He was a U.S. Marine. He served our country. But he had such a wonderful, positive, supportive outlook. I mean, you couldn't help but fall in love with him. He was just terrific.
I love it. So, Tanya, as we kind of wrap up here, we're going to send people to all the links we mentioned in the podcast. But is there anywhere else that you want to send people as they kind of listen to this through and they want to connect with you? Is there a great space on social media where you like to live and hang out, or where would you like to send people?
Well, you know, the place that is probably easiest to find every aspect that you might want to tap into is my link tree.
Okay.
So you go to Linktree/Tanya Brockett. And it's got, I have there, by the way, I have a free session. If somebody wants to figure out, okay, I don't even know what I need, can you help me to figure that out? I have that available at Linktree. And I also have a link, you know, to the book and to my bestseller worthy formula course too, that I do with Kathy. So all of that is accessible there. That's probably the easiest way.
Okay. We'll make sure that's in the notes as well. That's great.
Thank you.
As we close off, any last parting words for anyone looking at teaching their kids how to be better with money? Is there something we can talk about around the dinner table tonight that we can bring up the topic with our high school students or college students in our home? What kind of conversation can we start with our kids tonight?
Well, you know, you can just, first of all, be open and honest with them about money. It is okay to say, you know what, Bobby, it cost about $100 to do this. How long would it take you if you were making $10 an hour to be able to afford to buy them? Make your kids start thinking about money. Make them help them to understand that things cost money. And gee, if I have to work for a certain amount of time in order to get it, I can have it by X time. Then you're also helping them to understand that everything is not instant gratification, right? You're also helping them to understand that money sometimes takes time, and that's okay. You can save for what you want. You don't have to go into debt to get what you want. And just have the conversation. Be open. Don't make it such a guarded subject because they need to understand. And it's so much better if they get that understanding from you, the parent.
Beautiful. Good words of wisdom. Mm-hmm. Congratulations on the book and all the great awards and the great accolades from your readers. Well deserved. And I'm glad that this book is out there in the world for us as parents and as students. It's a great resource that we can all leverage. So thank you for putting this out into the world for us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your sharing it.
Awesome. Everyone, all the information is always in the show notes. Tanya, again, thank you so much for being part of the podcast.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun, well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.